Welcome, seekers of wisdom. Today, I want to share something profound with you, something that took me over a decade to truly understand and implement in my life. These are not just philosophical concepts gathering dust in ancient texts. These are practical, brutal truths that have the power to completely transform how you navigate through life's challenges. Imagine waking up every single morning with an unshakable sense of purpose. Picture yourself moving through your day with the calm confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are and what they stand for. Envision facing life's inevitable storms, not with fear or anxiety, but with the steady resolve of a mountain standing firm against the wind. This is not fantasy. This is the promise of Stoicism when properly understood and ruthlessly applied. 10 years ago, I was drowning in my own mental chaos. Every small setback felt like a catastrophe. Every criticism cut deep into my soul. Every uncertainty about the future kept me awake at night, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. I was emotionally exhausted, mentally scattered, and spiritually bankrupt. Perhaps you know this feeling, perhaps you're experiencing it right now. But then I discovered something that changed everything, not in the pages of modern self-help books, but in the writings of men who lived 2,000 years ago, men who faced real adversity. Marcus Aurelius, who led an empire while battling personal tragedy. Epictetus, who found freedom in philosophy while living as a slave. Seneca, who maintained his principles while navigating the treacherous waters of Roman politics. These men didn't just theorize about mental strength, they lived it. They tested their principles in the crucible of real life, under pressures that would break most modern individuals. And what they discovered, what they documented, has survived millennia because it works. Not sometimes, not for some people, but universally, for anyone willing to embrace these brutal truths and apply them without compromise. Rule 1. The morning ritual of mental sovereignty. The first brutal truth that took me years to accept is this: how you begin your morning determines the quality of your entire life. Not just your day, but your life. The Stoics understood something that modern neuroscience has only recently confirmed. The first hour of your day sets the neurological patterns that will dominate your mental state for the next 16 hours. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, began each day not by checking messages from his generals or reviewing the state of the empire. He began by writing in his journal, not for posterity, but for clarity. He understood that the mind, left to its own devices, is like a wild horse. It will run in whatever direction fear, desire, or circumstance pulls it. But through morning reflection, through deliberate mental preparation, you become the rider, not the horse. Let me share with you the exact morning protocol that transformed my scattered mind into a focused weapon. This is not comfortable. This is not easy. This is brutal in its simplicity and devastating in its effectiveness. First, you wake without checking your phone. This sounds simple, but for most people, it's almost impossible. Your phone is designed to hijack your attention. Every notification, every message, every update is engineered to create a small hit of dopamine that makes you crave the next one. When you check your phone first thing in the morning, you're not starting your day. You're starting someone else's day. You're immediately reactive rather than proactive. Instead, you rise and immediately engage in what I call the sovereignty sequence. You sit in silence for exactly 10 minutes. Not meditation in the traditional sense, but active mental preparation. You ask yourself 3 questions that the Stoics considered fundamental. First, what am I grateful for today? This is not toxic positivity, this is strategic mental positioning. Gratitude is not about feeling good, It's about establishing a baseline of abundance rather than scarcity. When you start from gratitude, challenges become opportunities rather than threats. Problems become puzzles rather than catastrophes. Second, what challenges will I likely face today, and how will my best self handle them? This is the practice of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Not to create anxiety, but to eliminate it. When you've already mentally rehearsed handling difficult situations with grace and wisdom, the actual situations lose their power to destabilize you. Third, what one thing, if accomplished today, would make everything else easier or unnecessary? This is about ruthless prioritization. The Stoics understood that energy is finite, mental energy especially so. Most people scatter their energy across dozens of trivial tasks and wonder why they never make progress on what truly matters. After this 10-minute sovereignty sequence, you engage in physical movement, not necessarily intense exercise, though that has its place, but deliberate, mindful movement that connects your mind to your body. The Stoics understood that the mind and body are not separate entities, but two aspects of the same system. When the body is weak and neglected, the mind follows. When the body is strong and disciplined, the mind naturally aligns. Then comes the most brutal part of the morning ritual: cold exposure. Whether it's a cold shower, cold plunge, or simply stepping outside in winter with minimal clothing, you deliberately expose yourself to discomfort. Why? Because comfort is the enemy of growth. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you become slightly weaker. Every time you choose challenge over comfort, you become slightly stronger. The cold is particularly powerful because it's impossible to think your way through it. You can't negotiate with cold water. You can't rationalize it away. You must simply endure. And in that endurance you discover something profound. The voice in your head that screams for comfort, that begs you to turn the hot water on, that insists you're going to die, that voice is a liar. And once you realize it's lying about the cold, you start to question what else it's lying about. Rule 2. The dichotomy of control as a weapon. The second rule that revolutionized my mental state is perhaps the most famous Stoic principle, yet the most misunderstood and misapplied. The dichotomy of control states that some things are within our control and some things are not. Within our control are our judgments, decisions, desires, and actions. Outside our control is literally everything else. This sounds simple. It's not. It's brutal in its implications. Most people spend 90% of their mental energy trying to control things that are fundamentally outside their control. They try to control other people's opinions. They try to control outcomes. They try to control the future. They try to control the past through regret and rumination. This is not just futile, it's mentally exhausting. Imagine you're pushing against a mountain, trying to move it. You push with all your might, day after day, year after year. The mountain doesn't move, because mountains don't move when you push them. But you keep pushing, getting more frustrated, more exhausted, more bitter about the immovability of mountains. This is how most people live their entire lives. The Stoics say, stop pushing the mountain. It's not yours to move. But here's where it gets brutal. Really accepting the dichotomy of control means accepting some harsh truths. Your reputation is not under your control. Your health is not entirely under your control. Whether you succeed or fail in your endeavors is not under your control. Whether people love you or hate you is not under your control. Whether you live or die is not under your control. What is under your control? Your effort, your integrity, your responses, your preparation, your decisions. That's it. That's the entire list. When I first encountered this principle, I thought I understood it. I nodded along, thinking, yes, of course, focus on what you can control. But I didn't really get it. I was still trying to control outcomes through my actions. I was still attached to results. I was still measuring my worth by external metrics. The breakthrough came when I realized that the dichotomy of control is not a comfort. It's a call to arms. It's not about accepting whatever happens passively. It's about pouring all your energy into what you actually can control while maintaining complete emotional detachment from outcomes. This is what Epictetus meant when he said you must be like an archer. You select your target carefully. You maintain your bow meticulously. You practice your form religiously. You account for wind and distance. You draw the bow with perfect technique. You release at exactly the right moment. And this is the crucial part, once the arrow leaves your bow, you must be completely indifferent to whether it hits the target. Not because you don't care about hitting the target, you chose the target specifically because you care about it, but because once the arrow is released, whether it hits or misses is no longer under your control. A sudden gust of wind, a bird flying through the path, the target moving unexpectedly, these are outside your control. Most people release the arrow and then try to influence its flight through worry, through hope, through mental gymnastics. They lean left when they want the arrow to go left. They hold their breath. They make bargains with the universe. This is insanity, yet we all do it constantly in our daily lives. The brutal application of this principle means you must become comfortable with uncertainty while maintaining maximum effort. You must care deeply about your actions while being indifferent to their fruits. You must pursue excellence while accepting that excellence guarantees nothing. Rule 3. Voluntary hardship as mental armor. The third rule is perhaps the most counterintuitive to our modern comfort-obsessed culture. The Stoics practiced voluntary hardship, not because they were masochists, but because they understood a fundamental truth about human psychology: we become what we repeatedly do, and if we repeatedly choose comfort, we become soft. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, would regularly sleep on the floor. He would eat only bread and water for days at a time. He would wear his roughest clothes and walk among the poor, not as some spiritual exercise or virtue signaling, but as practical preparation. He understood that fortune is fickle. Today's luxury could be tomorrow's memory. By voluntarily experiencing hardship, he inoculated himself against the fear of loss. He could enjoy his wealth without being enslaved by it, because he knew from direct experience that he could be content without it. This principle saved my sanity when I understood and applied it properly. I had always been afraid of failure, afraid of poverty, afraid of rejection, afraid of discomfort. These fears controlled my decisions. They kept me in jobs I hated. They kept me in relationships that were toxic. They kept me from taking risks that could have led to growth. So I began practicing voluntary hardship. Once a month, I would live on $20, not as a game or a challenge, but as a serious experiment in discovering my actual needs versus my perceived needs. I learned that I could be perfectly functional, even content, with far less than I imagined. I began fasting regularly, not for health benefits, though those came, but to prove to myself that the voice screaming for food after missing one meal was lying about the urgency of its demands. I learned that hunger is just a sensation, like cold or heat. It passes. It always passes. I started sleeping on the floor one night a week. I took cold showers exclusively for 6 months. I went without my phone for days at a time. I walked instead of driving, even when it was inconvenient. I had difficult conversations I had been avoiding. I admitted mistakes publicly that I had been hiding. Each voluntary hardship was like adding a piece of armor, not physical armor, but psychological armor. The armor of knowing from direct experience that I could handle discomfort, that I could survive embarrassment, that I could function without my usual comforts and crutches. But here's the brutal truth about voluntary hardship: it's never comfortable. It never becomes easy. The voice that tells you to avoid discomfort never goes away. It just loses its power over you. You hear it, you acknowledge it, and then you do what needs to be done anyway. This is different from unnecessary suffering. The Stoics weren't advocating for purposeless pain, they were advocating for strategic discomfort that builds resilience. Like a vaccine that introduces a weakened form of a disease to build immunity, voluntary hardship introduces manageable challenges that build psychological immunity to life's inevitable difficulties. Rule 4. Memento Mori and the urgency of living. The fourth rule is the most sobering: remember that you will die. Memento Mori. The Stoics didn't contemplate death to be morbid, they contemplated death to be alive. Here's what 10 years of practicing Memento Mori has taught me. Most people live as if they're immortal, and paradoxically, this causes them to waste their lives. They put off important conversations because there's always tomorrow. They delay pursuing their dreams because there's always next year. They tolerate toxic situations because change is hard and there's always time to change later. But there isn't always time. This is the brutal truth that modern society desperately tries to hide. We've sanitized death, removed it from daily life, created entire industries around the denial of mortality. And in doing so, we've removed one of life's most powerful teachers. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." Think about that. The Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world, was worried about not truly living, because he understood that power, wealth, status, none of these guarantee a life well lived. I practice Memento Mori every morning and every evening. In the morning, I remind myself that this could be my last day. Not to create anxiety, but to create urgency. If this were my last day, would I waste it on petty resentments? Would I spend it scrolling through social media? Would I avoid that important conversation? Would I put off that meaningful work? In the evening, I reflect as if it were my last evening. What did I do today that mattered? What did I learn? How did I grow? Who did I serve? What would I regret not having done if I didn't wake up tomorrow? This practice has a profound effect on decision-making. When you truly internalize your mortality, trivial concerns fall away. The opinion of strangers becomes irrelevant. The pursuit of status symbols loses its appeal. The fear of failure becomes insignificant compared to the fear of not trying. But Memento Mori is not just about your own death. It's about recognizing the mortality of everyone around you. Your parents will die. Your children will die. Your friends will die. Everyone you love, everyone you hate, everyone you pass on the street, they're all temporary. This recognition should create urgency in your relationships. That grudge you're holding, the person you're angry with will be dead soon, and so will you. Is the grudge worth the time you're wasting? That love you're not expressing? The person you love won't always be there to hear it. Neither will you always be there to say it. The Stoics practiced a specific exercise called the view from above. Imagine floating up, higher and higher, until you can see your city, then your country, then the planet. From that height, your problems seem insignificant. Your life seems brief. Your concerns seem trivial. Then zoom in on a hospital. In one room, someone is being born. In another, someone is dying. In another, someone is getting a terminal diagnosis. In another, someone is recovering miraculously. Life and death, hope and despair, beginnings and endings, all happening simultaneously, constantly, everywhere. Your problems are not unique. Your suffering is not special. Your life is not permanent. This is not depressing, it's liberating. It means you're free to stop taking yourself so seriously. You're free to take risks. You're free to fail. You're free to live. Rule 5. The discipline of perception. Choosing your reality. The fifth rule transformed how I experience reality itself. The Stoics understood something that modern cognitive psychology has confirmed: we don't experience reality directly. We experience our interpretation of reality, and that interpretation is a choice. Epictetus, born a slave, understood this better than anyone. He couldn't control his external circumstances. He was literally owned by another human being. But he realized that his master could control his body, but not his mind. His master could force him to work, but not how he thought about the work. His master could inflict pain, but not the meaning he assigned to the pain. This is the discipline of perception, the practice of consciously choosing how you interpret events, not through delusional positive thinking, but through accurate, useful framing. Here's a practical example that changed my life. I used to see obstacles as problems. Traffic was a problem. Difficult people were problems. Unexpected expenses were problems. Health challenges were problems. This perception made me a victim of circumstance, always at the mercy of external events. Then I learned to reframe obstacles as training. Traffic became training in patience. Difficult people became training in compassion and boundaries. Unexpected expenses became training in financial resilience. Health challenges became training in discipline and appreciation. Same external events, completely different internal experience. But the discipline of perception goes deeper. It's about questioning your automatic thoughts, your inherited beliefs, your unconscious assumptions. Most of what we think is not actually thinking. It's repetition of patterns we absorbed in childhood, reinforced by selective attention to confirming evidence. You think you're not good enough. Where did that thought come from? Who told you that? What evidence do you have? What evidence contradicts it that you're ignoring? You think life is unfair. Compared to what? According to whose rules? What if life is perfectly fair, just operating according to principles you don't yet understand? You think you're unlucky? How are you defining luck? What about all the lucky things you take for granted? Being born, being literate, having access to this information. The Stoics had a powerful practice called the discipline of desire. They recognized that suffering comes not from not getting what we want, but from wanting what we don't have, while not wanting what we do have. The solution is not to get more of what we want, but to want what we already have. This doesn't mean settling for mediocrity or not striving for improvement. It means starting from a position of abundance rather than scarcity. When you appreciate what you have, you pursue more from a place of strength rather than desperation. I spent years chasing external validation, thinking that achievement would make me feel worthy, but achievement just moved the goalposts. There was always someone more successful, always another level to reach, always another mountain to climb. The discipline of perception helped me realize that worthiness is not achieved, it's recognized. You're already worthy, you always were, you just chose to believe otherwise. Rule 6. Amor Fati. Embracing your fate. The sixth rule is perhaps the most difficult to accept and the most powerful when embodied. Love your fate. Amor Fati. Not just accept what happens, but love it. Not just tolerate it, but embrace it. Not just endure it, but be grateful for it. This sounds like insanity when you first encounter it. Love everything that happens, even tragedy, even injustice, even suffering. The Stoics say yes, not because these things are good in themselves, but because they are your reality. and fighting reality is the source of suffering. Friedrich Nietzsche, heavily influenced by the Stoics, expressed this perfectly. My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it. Here's what this means practically. Every single thing that has happened in your life has led you to this moment. Every success, every failure, every joy, every trauma, they're all links in the chain that created who you are right now. Remove any link and the chain breaks. You become someone else, reading something else, living somewhere else. That relationship that ended badly, it taught you what you don't want and prepared you for what you do want. That job you lost, it forced you to develop skills you wouldn't have developed otherwise. That health crisis, it taught you to value what you previously took for granted. This is not about finding silver linings or making excuses for bad behavior. Injustice is still injustice. Tragedy is still tragic. Pain still hurts. But these experiences, once they've happened, become part of your story. And you can either resist your story, spending your life wishing things had been different, or you can embrace your story and use it as fuel for growth. I learned this lesson brutally when I experienced a significant betrayal by someone I trusted completely. For months, I was consumed by anger, resentment, and fantasies of revenge. I replayed the betrayal constantly, each time feeling the pain anew. I imagined different scenarios where I had seen it coming, prevented it, or responded differently. Then I encountered Amor Fati, and I asked myself a difficult question. If I could press a button and make the betrayal never have happened, would I press it? My immediate answer was yes, of course. But then I thought deeper. Without that betrayal, I wouldn't have learned to set boundaries. I wouldn't have developed discernment about who to trust. I wouldn't have discovered my own resilience. I wouldn't have been forced to become self-reliant. The betrayal was wrong. The person who betrayed me was wrong. But the betrayal happened, and it became part of my story. I could either let it be a wound that never heals, or transform it into wisdom. I chose wisdom. Not by forgiving the person who betrayed me, that's a separate issue, but by being grateful for the lessons the experience taught me. Amor Fati is not passive. It's the most active possible stance toward life. It's saying whatever happens, I will find a way to use it. Whatever happens, I will grow from it. Whatever happens, I will transform it into strength. This doesn't mean seeking out negative experiences. It doesn't mean being reckless or foolish. It means that when negative experiences find you, and they will find you, you don't waste energy wishing they hadn't. You immediately ask, how can I use this? What can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger? Rule 7: The Inner Citadel. Building unshakeable core strength. The seventh and final rule is the culmination of all the others, the creation of what Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel. This is the fortress of the mind that cannot be breached by external events. It's the unshakable core that remains stable, regardless of what storms rage around you. The inner citadel is not built through meditation alone, though meditation helps. It's not built through reading, though knowledge is important. It's built through consistent application of Stoic principles in increasingly difficult circumstances. Think of it like physical training. You don't build strength by lifting the same light weight forever. You progressively increase the weight. You challenge your muscles to adapt. You push to the point of failure, rest, and come back stronger. The inner citadel is built the same way. Every time you choose virtue over vice, you strengthen it. Every time you maintain composure in chaos, you fortify it. Every time you focus on what you control rather than what you don't, you add another stone to its walls. But here's the brutal truth: building the inner citadel is a lifelong project that's never complete. There's always another test, always another challenge, always another opportunity to either strengthen or weaken your mental fortress. The inner citadel has 4 walls, each representing a cardinal virtue that the Stoics considered essential. The first wall is wisdom, the ability to see things as they truly are, not as you wish they were or fear they might be. Wisdom is developed through study, reflection, and most importantly, through learning from mistakes. Every error is a teacher if you're willing to be a student. The second wall is justice, the commitment to doing what's right, even when it's costly. Justice is not about following rules blindly, but about contributing to the common good. It's recognizing that you're part of a larger whole and acting accordingly. The third wall is courage, not the absence of fear, but right action in the presence of fear. Courage is developed by consistently doing what scares you, by leaning into discomfort, by choosing growth over safety. The fourth wall is temperance, self-discipline and moderation, not abstinence from pleasure, but freedom from being controlled by pleasure. Temperance is the ability to enjoy without attachment, to partake without dependence. These 4 walls protect what the Stoics considered the only true good of virtuous character. Everything else, wealth, health, reputation, even life itself, these are preferred indifference, nice to have, but not necessary for the good life. Only virtue is necessary. This is perhaps the most radical and difficult aspect of Stoicism to accept. It means that you could lose everything external and still live a good life if you maintain your character. It means that success without virtue is failure, and failure with virtue is success. I've tested this principle in my own life, not by choice but by circumstance. I've experienced significant financial loss, relationship breakdown, health challenges, and professional failure. Each time I had a choice: compromise my principles to possibly improve my external situation, or maintain my principles and accept whatever consequences follow. Early in my journey, I often chose compromise. I told small lies to avoid conflict. I cut corners to achieve faster results. I betrayed my own values for temporary advantages, and every time, regardless of whether it worked externally, it weakened my inner citadel. I became less trustworthy to myself. I became more dependent on external validation. I became more fragile. But as I practiced Stoicism more seriously, I began choosing differently. I told the truth even when it cost me opportunities. I did the right thing even when no one was watching. I maintained my standards even when everyone else was lowering theirs. And something remarkable happened. My external results became less important to my well-being. Success was pleasant but not necessary. Failure was unpleasant but not devastating. This is the promise of the inner citadel: not that you'll never suffer, but that suffering won't break you. Not that you'll never fail, but that failure won't define you. Not that life will be easy, but that you'll be strong enough for whatever life demands. The morning secret: integration and transformation. Now, let me share with you the morning secret that ties all these principles together and creates lasting transformation. This is not just another morning routine. This is a complete rewiring of your mental operating system. Every morning, before the sun rises, before the world makes its demands, before your habitual thought patterns take hold, you have a window of opportunity. Your mind is most plastic, most moldable, most receptive to new programming in the first minutes after waking. The secret is not just what you do in these moments, but how you do it. You must approach your morning practice with the seriousness of a warrior preparing for battle, because that's what you are. Every day is a battle between your higher self and your lower impulses, between your principles and your temptations, between who you are and who you could become. Start by waking at the same time every day, regardless of when you went to sleep. This builds discipline and tells your subconscious that you, not your circumstances, determine your actions. The time doesn't matter as much as the consistency. Whether it's 4 a.m. or 7 a.m., pick a time and defend it like your life depends on it. Upon waking, resist the urge to check your phone, to review your plans, to think about your day. Instead, sit up immediately. Don't negotiate with the voice that wants 5 more minutes. That voice is the enemy of your development. It will always want 5 more minutes, 5 more compromises, 5 more excuses. Sit in darkness or low light. Breathe deeply 3 times, filling your lungs completely and exhaling fully. This signals to your nervous system that you're safe, present, and in control. Then begin what I call the Stoic invocation. First, remind yourself of your mortality. Say, either aloud or internally, "I may die today." Feel the weight of that statement. Let it sink into your bones. This is not morbid pessimism, but radical realism. You might die today. Everyone who has ever died woke up that morning not knowing it was their last. Next, remind yourself of your power. Say, "I control my judgments, decisions, and actions. Nothing else." This is your declaration of sovereignty over the only kingdom that truly belongs to you, your mind. Then, set your intention. Say, "Today, I will act with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, regardless of what happens." This is your commitment to virtue, your promise to yourself that you will maintain your character regardless of external events. After this invocation, engage in what the Stoics called the view from above. Close your eyes and imagine floating up from your body, through your roof, above your neighborhood, your city, your country, until you can see the entire planet. See the billions of people waking, sleeping, working, playing, suffering, celebrating. Recognize your place in this vast tapestry. Your problems shrink, your perspective expands. You remember that you're part of something larger. Now zoom back in, but maintain that cosmic perspective. You're one human among billions, on one planet among billions, for a brief moment in infinite time. Yet you have consciousness, choice, the ability to act with virtue. This is the paradox of human existence, cosmically insignificant, yet morally sovereign. With this perspective established, engage in negative visualization. Imagine losing something you value: your job, your health, a relationship, a possession. Don't dwell on it, but touch it briefly. Feel the initial sting of loss. Then ask yourself, would I still be able to live virtuously without this? The answer is always yes. This practice inoculates you against the fear of loss and helps you appreciate what you have while you have it. Next, practice gratitude, but not in the conventional way. Don't just list things you're grateful for. Experience gratitude physically. Feel it in your chest, your stomach, your entire body. Gratitude is not a thought, but a state of being. When you embody gratitude, scarcity thinking becomes impossible. Then comes the most crucial part, mental rehearsal. Review your day ahead, not in terms of tasks to complete, but challenges to face virtuously. Where will you likely encounter difficulty? Where will you be tempted to compromise your principles? Where will you need to exercise unusual courage or restraint? Mentally rehearse handling these situations with perfect virtue. See yourself maintaining composure when criticized. See yourself telling the truth when lying would be easier. See yourself choosing the difficult right over the easy wrong. This mental rehearsal creates neural pathways, that make virtuous action more likely when the actual situation arises. After mental rehearsal, stand up and move your body. Do push-ups, squats, burpees, something that requires effort and creates mild discomfort. This is not about fitness, though fitness will follow. This is about starting your day by voluntarily choosing discomfort, by proving to yourself that you can do difficult things, by establishing dominance over the voice that prefers comfort. Follow this with cold exposure. A cold shower is sufficient, though a cold plunge is better. The cold is your teacher. It teaches you that discomfort is temporary, that your mind's protests are usually exaggerated, that you can endure more than you think. Start with 30 seconds if you must, but work up to at least 2 minutes. During the cold, practice maintaining calm breathing and a quiet mind. Don't fight the cold. Accept it after the cold. Sit quietly for 5 minutes. Don't meditate in the traditional sense. Instead, practice what Marcus Aurelius called watching the logos. Simply observe your thoughts without judgment, without engagement, without resistance. Notice how thoughts arise unbidden, how they pull you into stories, how they create emotions. This observer perspective is your true self, the consciousness behind the thoughts. Finally, before engaging with the world, write. Not a to-do list, but a philosophical reflection. Write about what you learned yesterday. Write about what you intend to practice today. Write about your progress and setbacks in developing virtue. This writing is not for anyone else. It's for clarity, for accountability, for tracking your philosophical development. This entire morning practice should take no more than 30 minutes. But these 30 minutes will determine the quality of the next 23.5 hours. More importantly, these 30 minutes, practiced consistently, will rewire your brain over time. You're not just starting your day, you're reconstructing your mind. The long game patience and perseverance. Here's what 10 years of practicing these principles has taught me. Transformation is not an event, but a process. You don't read about Stoicism and suddenly become mentally untouchable. You don't practice for a week and suddenly achieve inner peace. You don't have one breakthrough and suddenly transcend all suffering. Real change happens slowly, almost imperceptibly, like erosion shaping rock. Each day you practice, you remove a tiny bit of mental weakness and add a tiny bit of mental strength. The changes are so small you won't notice them day to day, but compound them over months and years, and you become unrecognizable to your former self. I remember the first time I realized how much I had changed. I received news that would have devastated me 5 years earlier, a significant professional setback that affected my income and reputation. But instead of spiraling into anxiety and self-pity, I found myself naturally thinking, this is outside my control. What can I learn from this? How can I use this to become stronger? The equanimity wasn't forced. It wasn't an act. It was genuine. The practices had rewired my default responses. What once would have triggered panic now triggered curiosity. What once would have caused despair now caused determination. But here's the warning: the moment you think you've mastered these principles is the moment you're furthest from them. Stoicism is not a destination, but a direction. You're never done developing virtue. You're never done strengthening your inner citadel. You're never done practicing Amor Fati. The ego wants to declare victory, to say, I've got it, to stop practicing. This is the most dangerous moment in your philosophical development. Like a martial artist who stops training because they earned a black belt, you become vulnerable the moment you become complacent. I've seen this in my own journey. Periods where I thought I had internalized the principles, so I relaxed my practices. I stopped my morning routine. I avoided voluntary hardship. I neglected reflection and writing, and slowly, insidiously, my old patterns returned. Anxiety crept back. Reactivity increased. The inner citadel began to crumble. The lesson was brutal but necessary. These practices are not temporary interventions, but permanent disciplines. Like physical fitness, mental fitness requires constant maintenance. Skip your workouts and your muscles atrophy. Skip your practices and your mental strength deteriorates. The social challenge Stoicism in relationships. One of the most challenging aspects of practicing Stoicism is navigating relationships with people who don't share these principles. Your spouse might not understand why you take cold showers. Your friends might mock your morning routine. Your colleagues might interpret your emotional equilibrium as indifference. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's easy to be stoic in isolation. It's much harder to maintain your principles when everyone around you operates from different assumptions. The key is to remember that you cannot control others' reactions to your practices. You cannot make them understand. You cannot force them to approve. What you can control is your own consistency and your own example. I've found that the best approach is quiet demonstration rather than preaching. Don't tell people about Stoicism unless they ask. Don't judge others for not practicing these principles. Don't create an identity around being a Stoic. Simply live according to your principles and let the results speak for themselves. Over time, people notice. They notice that you don't panic when everyone else does. They notice that you maintain composure in crisis. They notice that setbacks don't devastate you and successes don't intoxicate you. And eventually, some of them ask, how do you do that? That's your opportunity to share, but even then, share sparingly. Give them a book recommendation or a single practice to try. Don't overwhelm them with philosophy. Let them come to it at their own pace, if at all. Remember, the Stoic ideal is not to separate yourself from society, but to serve it. Marcus Aurelius didn't retreat to a monastery, he ran an empire. Epictetus didn't isolate himself, he taught students. Seneca didn't avoid the messy business of life, he engaged with it fully. Your Stoic practice should make you more useful to others, not less. Your emotional stability should be a gift to those around you. Your virtue should contribute to the common good. If your practice is making you cold, distant, or superior, you're missing the point. The Stoics understood that humans are social animals. We're designed for connection, cooperation, and community. The goal is not to transcend these needs, but to engage with them from a place of strength rather than neediness. Save, dealing with setbacks when philosophy meets reality. Let me be brutally honest about something most Stoic teachers won't tell you. You will fail at these practices. Repeatedly. Spectacularly. Despite your best intentions and sincere efforts, you will lose your temper. You will be overwhelmed by anxiety. You will make decisions based on fear rather than virtue. You will compromise your principles for comfort or advantage. This is not a maybe, this is a certainty. And it's not a sign that Stoicism doesn't work or that you're not cut out for it. It's a sign that you're human, dealing with millions of years of evolutionary programming that often conflicts with philosophical ideals. The crucial question is not whether you'll fail, but how you'll respond to failure. Will you use it as an excuse to abandon your practices? Will you wallow in guilt and self-recrimination? Or will you treat it as valuable data, learn from it, and return to your practices with renewed commitment? I've failed at every single principle I've shared with you. I've checked my phone first thing in the morning after swearing I wouldn't. I've tried to control uncontrollable outcomes despite knowing better. I've avoided voluntary hardship because I just didn't feel like it. I've forgotten my mortality and wasted days on trivia. I've let my perceptions run wild instead of choosing useful interpretations. I've resisted my fate instead of embracing it. I've let my inner citadel crumble through neglect. But each failure taught me something. Each setback revealed a weakness that needed strengthening. Each compromise showed me where my principles weren't yet fully internalized. The failures weren't departures from the path, they were part of the path. The Stoics had a concept called the reserve clause. Whenever they set an intention, they added fate, permitting, or if nothing prevents me. This wasn't pessimism or hedging their bets. It was acknowledging that despite our best efforts, external factors might intervene. Apply this to your practice. Say, I will maintain my morning routine, fate permitting. I will respond virtuously to challenges, if nothing prevents me. This mental reservation paradoxically makes success more likely, because it removes the pressure of perfection and acknowledges the role of circumstances. The paradox of effort and acceptance. One of the most confusing aspects of Stoicism for beginners is the apparent contradiction between maximum effort and total acceptance. How can you strive with all your might while being indifferent to outcomes? How can you care deeply while not caring at all? This paradox resolves when you understand that effort and acceptance operate in different domains. Effort operates in the domain of what you control, your actions, decisions, and judgments. Acceptance operates in the domain of what you don't control, outcomes, others' actions, and external events. Think of it like planting a garden. You control the planting, watering, weeding, and protecting. You don't control the weather, pests, or diseases. The wise gardener puts maximum effort into what they control while accepting what they don't. They don't stop watering because it might not rain. They don't stop planting because frost might come. This paradox exists in every area of life. In relationships, you control your love, honesty, and commitment. You don't control whether these are reciprocated. In business, you control your work ethic, innovation, and service. You don't control market conditions or competitor actions. In health, you control your diet, exercise, and sleep. You don't control your genetics or random illness. The untrained mind either puts effort into the uncontrollable, which leads to frustration, or becomes passive about the controllable, which leads to stagnation. The Stoic mind puts effort only where it has power and accepts everything else. This creates a powerful psychological state, engaged but not attached, committed but not dependent, caring but not controlled. You become like water, powerful in your flow, yet yielding to immovable obstacles, always finding a way forward without forcing. The ultimate test, maintaining virtue in victory. We often think of Stoicism as a philosophy for dealing with adversity, and it certainly is. But one of its most valuable applications is in dealing with success. More people are corrupted by victory than defeated by failure. More characters are ruined by praise than criticism. More lives are derailed by getting what they want than not getting it. Success is dangerous because it feeds the ego. It whispers that you're special, that the rules don't apply to you, that you've figured it out. It makes you soft because you forget what struggle feels like. It makes you arrogant because you attribute outcomes to your abilities rather than circumstances. The Stoics knew this danger intimately. Marcus Aurelius had absolute power and constantly reminded himself that he was just a human who would soon be dust. Seneca had enormous wealth and regularly practiced poverty. They understood that success is not an achievement, but a test. When success comes, and if you practice these principles consistently, some form of success will come. You must be more vigilant than ever. Double down on your practices. Increase your voluntary hardships. Remind yourself more frequently of your mortality. Practice more gratitude. Give more credit to fortune and less to yourself. I learned this lesson when my application of Stoic principles led to significant professional success. For a moment, I thought I had cracked the code. I relaxed my disciplines, I started believing my own hype. I forgot that success is just a preferred indifferent, not a good in itself. The universe has a way of humbling those who need humbling. My success evaporated as quickly as it had appeared, and I found myself back at square one. But this time, I was grateful for the lesson. Success hadn't made me better, it had revealed where I still needed work.
The community of practice.
You're not alone. One of the most encouraging realizations in this journey is that you're not alone. Throughout history, in every culture, there have been people grappling with these same challenges, applying these same principles, fighting these same battles. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his tent during military campaigns, struggled with the same frustrations you face. Epictetus, teaching his students, dealt with the same human frailties you encounter. Seneca, navigating Roman politics, faced the same ethical dilemmas you confront. More importantly, right now around the world, there are thousands of people practicing these principles. They're waking up early to prepare their minds. They're taking cold showers to build resilience. They're choosing virtue over vice in small, unseen moments. They're building their inner citadels brick by brick. You're part of this invisible community. When you practice these principles, you join a tradition stretching back millennia and forward into the future. You become a link in an unbroken chain of humans choosing wisdom over ignorance, courage over cowardice, justice over selfishness, discipline over indulgence. This community doesn't meet in buildings or wear special clothes or have membership cards. It exists wherever someone chooses virtue in a difficult moment. It exists wherever someone maintains composure in chaos. It exists wherever someone accepts what cannot be changed while changing what can be. The final lesson. It's simpler than you think. After all these words, all these principles, all these practices, here's the final lesson that took me 10 years to learn. Stoicism is simpler than we make it. At its core, it's about one thing: choosing virtue moment by moment. Everything else, the morning routines, the cold showers, the journaling, the meditation, these are just tools to help you make that choice more consistently. In any given moment, you know what the virtuous action is. You know what wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance look like in your specific situation. The challenge is not knowledge, but application. Not understanding, but doing. The complexity we add, the elaborate systems we create, the endless books we read. These can become sophisticated forms of procrastination. We study virtue instead of practicing it. We analyze courage instead of acting courageously. We debate justice instead of doing what's right. So here's my challenge to you. Start simple. Pick one principle and apply it today. Not perfectly, not completely, but sincerely. Take one cold shower, have one difficult conversation. Practice gratitude for one thing you usually take for granted. Choose virtue in one moment where you'd usually choose comfort. Then do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Don't wait until you understand everything. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until conditions are perfect. Start where you are, with what you have, as you are. The path of Stoicism is not walked in giant leaps, but in small, consistent steps. Each step makes the next one easier. Each choice makes the next choice clearer. Each practice makes the next practice more natural. Conclusion: the invitation to greatness. As we reach the end of this exploration, I want to leave you with an invitation. Not to perfection, which is impossible. Not to immediate transformation, which is unrealistic. But to the daily practice of becoming slightly better than you were yesterday. The 7 rules I've shared, the morning ritual, the dichotomy of control, voluntary hardship, Memento, Mori, the discipline of perception, Amor, Fati, and the inner citadel. These are not commandments, but tools. Use them as needed. Adapt them to your circumstances. Make them your own. Remember that Stoicism is not about suppressing emotion, but understanding it. Not about accepting injustice, but responding to it wisely. Not about indifference to life, but full engagement with it. Not about isolation, but service. Not about perfection, but progress. The promise of Stoicism is not that life will become easy, but that you will become strong. Not that you'll never suffer, but that suffering will have meaning. Not that you'll always succeed, but that failure won't break you. Not that you'll be happy all the time, but that you'll have something better than happiness. Eudaimonia, the deep satisfaction of a life lived according to virtue. This is not a philosophy for the weak or the passive. This is a philosophy for warriors of the mind, for those willing to face hard truths and do hard things. It's for those who refuse to be victims of circumstance, who insist on authoring their own character, who choose meaning over comfort and virtue over vice. The world needs more people practicing these principles. In an age of anxiety, we need models of composure. In an age of reaction, we need examples of reflection. In an age of weakness, we need demonstrations of strength. In an age of vice, we need champions of virtue. This is your invitation to join those ranks. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Not because you'll be rewarded, but because virtue is its own reward. Not because others will understand, but because you'll understand yourself. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The journey to mental invincibility begins with a single choice. The journey to inner peace begins with a single practice, which is impossible. Not to immediate transformation, which is unrealistic, but to the daily practice of becoming slightly better than you were yesterday. The 7 rules I've shared, the morning ritual, the dichotomy of control, voluntary hardship, Memento, Mori, the discipline of perception, Amor, Fati, and the inner citadel, these are not commandments, but tools. Use them as needed. Adapt them to your circumstances. Make them your own. Remember that Stoicism is not about suppressing emotion, but understanding it. Not about accepting injustice, but responding to it wisely. Not about indifference to life, but full engagement with it. Not about isolation, but service. Not about perfection, but progress. The promise of Stoicism is not that life will become easy, but that you will become strong. Not that you'll never suffer, but that suffering will have meaning. Not that you'll always succeed, but that failure won't break you. Not that you'll be happy all the time, but that you'll have something better than happiness. Eudaimonia, the deep satisfaction of a life lived according to virtue. This is not a philosophy for the weak or the passive. This is a philosophy for warriors of the mind, for those willing to face hard truths and do hard things. It's for those who refuse to be victims of circumstance, who insist on authoring their own character, who choose meaning over comfort and virtue over vice. The world needs more people practicing these principles. In an age of anxiety, we need models of composure. In an age of reaction, we need examples of reflection. In an age of weakness, we need demonstrations of strength. In an age of vice, we need champions of virtue. This is your invitation to join those ranks. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Not because you'll be rewarded, but because virtue is its own reward. Not because others will understand, but because you'll understand yourself. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The journey to mental invincibility begins with a single choice. The journey to inner peace begins with a single practice. Your journey begins now, with your next decision. Will you check your phone or check in with yourself? Will you choose comfort or choose growth? Will you react to life or respond to it? Will you be a victim of your thoughts or the master of them? The choice is yours. It always has been. It always will be. That's the brutal truth that took me 10 years to learn. You are far more powerful than you think, but only if you choose to exercise that power. The ancient Stoics lit a torch that has been passed down through generations. Now it's being offered to you. Will you take it? Will you carry it forward? Will you use its light to navigate the darkness? The practices are simple. The principles are clear. The path is marked. All that remains is for you to walk it. Welcome to the practice of Stoicism. Welcome to the journey of self-mastery. Welcome to the community of those who choose virtue over vice, wisdom over ignorance, courage over cowardice, justice over selfishness. Welcome to the rest of your life, lived with intention, purpose and unshakable inner strength. The morning awaits. Your practice begins. Your transformation is possible. Choose wisely. Choose virtuously. Choose now.